Girivardhari Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paribraj Vicharja Asto Tarasita Shishri Maris Divine Grace Sabai Charana Ravinda Bhakta Vedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Gaura Vaishnava Brinda Ki Jai. And I think the next stage is we're going to read the Lila Amrita.
Yes,
Srila
Hare
Prabhupada's
Krishna, I'm
reading.
reading from Nilamit. It is in unlimited opportunity and limited time. In the middle of a winter of struggle came a fortunate break for the London devotees. A meeting with George Harrison of the Beatles. For a long time, the devotees had been thinking of ways to get the Beatles to chant Hare Krishna. To the Beatles' Apple Record studio, they had once sent an apple pie with Hare Krishna letters on it. Another time, they had sent a wind-up walking apple with the Hare Krishna mantra printed on it. They had even sent a tape of one of their kirtans and had received a standard rejection letter from the Apple record. So it seemed to be Krishna's special arrangement when Shyamasundara suddenly met one of the most sought-after celebrities in the world, George Harrison. In a crowded room at Apple Records, Shyamasundara, shaven-headed and wearing robes, sat hoping for a chance to have a few words with someone connected with the Beatles. Then George came down the stairs from a conference. As he entered the room, he saw Shamsundara walking over and sitting down beside Shamsundara. He asked, "Where have you been?" "I have been trying to meet the Hare Krishna people for the last couple of years." Shamsundara and George worked together for an hour while everyone else hovered around. "I have really been trying to meet you people," George said. "Why don't you come to my place tomorrow?" The next day, Shamsundara went to George's for lunch, where he met the other Beatles, Ringo Starr, John Lennon, and Paul McCartney. They all had questions, but George was especially interested. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I think one time Srila Prabhupada did at the end of the...
Share পড়ছি তো তাই পড়া
Huh? Sorry? Everything is okay there? Yes, I think, I hope.
Please continue, Hare Krishna.
Okay, Krishna, Krishna. Yeah, all glories to George Harrison. Srila Prabhupada chanted once, at least once, but once I remember. He said, all glories to George Harrison. He was such a nice boy, a very intelligent person. And one of the major intelligent things was that he took shelter of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, and the Krishna Consciousness Movement, and he financed the publishing of Srila Prabhupada's Krishna book. That's another whole story. What to speak of Bhaktivedanta manner. So we'll turn to the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. We're blessed to have the opportunity to hear the Bhagavatam and blessed to have the intelligence to want to do that. It's very rare. Manushyanam sahasrishu kasyat jatiti siddhaya. Out of many thousands or millions of persons, hardly one will endeavor for perfection. And of those who have attained perfection, not knowing that they're not this body, that they are spiritual entities, hardly one will know me in truth. And again, when Srila Prabhupada was asked, does that mean that out of all the devotees, only one will become Krishna conscious? And Srila Prabhupada's wonderful answer was that that one is ISKCON, the International Society. That's the one. Not that not in an exclusive way, um, but saying that if you are in this movement and you practice this process very sincerely and practically, then you will be able to know Krishna. So it's not just one out of all the devotees, but all the devotees who take shelter. So we're going to Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, chapter 4, and text is 15. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And this has got to be the shortest verse I've come across. Yad yach chirsanya charitam tat tad anuvartate loka. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation: whatever action is performed by a great man, common men follow. Srila Prabhupada's purport. A similar verse is also found in Bhagavad Gita 3:21. It is essential for human society to have a section of men perfectly trained as qualified brahmanas according to the instructions of Vedic knowledge. Those below the Brahminical qualification, administrators, merchants, and workers, should take instructions from those ideal people who are considered to be intellectuals. Means they're very intelligent. And sometimes we get a picture of an intellectual and think, oh, I'm not one of those, but we can be intelligent. In continuing Srila Prabhupada's purport, in this way, everyone can be elevated to the highest transcendental position and be freed from material attachment. The material world is described by Lord Krishna himself as Dukhalayam Ashastam, a temporary place of misery. No one can stay here, even if he makes a compromise with misery. One has to give up this body and accept another, which may not even be a human body. As soon as one gets a material body, he becomes dehabrit or dehi. In other words, he is subjected to all the material conditions. The leaders of society must be so ideal that by following them, one can be relieved from the clutches of material existence. Om Magana Timarandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance. My spiritual master is forcing me to open my eyes with the torchlight of transcendental knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto his lotus feet. Yad yad chirshan yacharitam tat tad anuvartate loka. Whatever action is performed by a great man, common men follow. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada is referring to 321, Yada yada sharati shreshtash tattate eviterojana sayat pramanam kurute lokastadanuvartate. Whatever actions are performed by a great man or person, common men follow in their footsteps, and whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. So I was thinking about this point that the greatest of all persons is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And if we are able to follow the qualities, not imitate, but follow, pick up the qualities that the Supreme Lord has to whatever degree we can, then we will, by following in his footsteps, we will attain the blissful existence that we hanker for. So we are not able to see Krishna directly with these eyes. So the Lord arranges for his pure devotees to come to this world, and he himself also comes to display his transcendental pastimes. But the Lord is always busy trying to uplift the conditioned souls. Uh, hmm. Lord Rishabhadev is specifically the incarnation of the Lord that we're hearing about, and he is engaging in the activities which are very beneficial and encouraging his sons. A very famous verse, there's many famous verses from Lord Rishabhadev. Nayam deho deha bhajamri loke kastan kaman arutam vidbujamye tapodivyam putraka yena satvam sudyed yasmad brahmasokyam tvanantam. So this is in the next chapter that we're going to be studying. Uh, it's number, I think, 5.1. 5.1. So I'll just read the translation. My dear sons, my dear boys, of all the living entities who have attained material bodies, those who have been awarded this human form should not work hard day and night simply for sense gratification, which is available to the hogs and dogs that eat stool. So that is the position of conditioned existence that we're hearing about, that the world of ignorance, where we are living in a temporary existence. And Prabhupada mentions that, hold on, make sure I get back to the right place. That's 15. That even it is essential for human society to have a section of men perfectly trained as qualified brahmanas according to the instructions of Vedic knowledge. Those below the Brahmanical, the administrators, etc., should take instructions from those ideal people who are considered to be intellectuals. In this way, everyone can be elevated to the highest chance of position and can be freed from material attachment. The material world is described by Lord Krishna himself as Dukkalayam Ashashvatam. Mamapecha Purna Janma Dukkalayam Ashashvatam. In Bhagavad Gita, I think it's 1815. No, sorry, not 1815. 815. It says that this material, the great souls are not deluded. Where is that verse? Here it may be. Here. After attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world which is filled with various miseries because they have attained the highest perfection. So Krishna doesn't like to see us in this suffering condition. Krishna's devotees have the qualities of compassion and so many other wonderful qualities of Krishna, and they very much don't like to see the conditioned soul suffering in this way in material existence. So they set the proper standards for human society. And you've heard Lord Rishabhadev is engaging in activities to set the example. Just like I think yesterday, this was a long verse. Well, we're just going to read the translation of the verse from yesterday. Being an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Rishabhadev was fully independent because his form was spiritual, eternal, and full of transcendental bliss. He eternally had nothing to do with the four principles of material misery, namely birth, death, old age, and disease. Nor was he materially attached. He was always equipoised, and he saw everyone on the same level. He was unhappy to see others unhappy. So again, these qualities are described towards the end of Bhagavad Gita in the 18th chapter, where Krishna says, Brahma Bhuta Prasanat Manasoshi Nakanshati Brahmaha Sarveshu, like that. He explains that being thus transcendentally situated, that's 18, I think 66, 1865, gives all the qualities of a person who is transcendentally situated. We might just look at that because it's I'm sure it's going to be very similar. If we look at these qualities of the Lord and we see the qualities, let's try it. Let's see if we can just do that. That's, yeah, it's there. So 18, please bear with me for a few moments. Hopefully, it's only a few moments. Brahmabhuta is 54. So it's 1851 to 53. It's very interesting because here we've got text 14 of this chapter, 5, 4, 14, and it's a rather long verse. So let's just see. Let's read the Bhagavad Gita one first, the translation. It says, being purified by his intelligence and controlling the mind with determination, giving up the objects of sense gratification, being freed from attachment and hatred. One who lives in a secluded place, who eats little, and who controls the body and the tongue, and is always in trance, and is detached, who is without false ego, false strength, false pride, lust, anger, and who does not accept material things. Such a person is certainly elevated to the position of self-realization. And then it goes on to say, one who is thus transcendently situated at once realizes the supreme Brahman. He never laments nor desires to have anything. He is equally disposed to every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. So that's Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaking. And here we're in the characteristics of Rishabhadev, yesterday's text. Being an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Rishabhadev was fully independent because his form was spiritual, eternal, and full of transcendental bliss. He eternally had nothing to do with the four principles of material misery, birth, death, old age, and disease, nor was he materially attached. He was always equipoised, and he saw everyone on the same level. He was unhappy to see others unhappy, and he was the well-wisher of all living entities. Although he was a perfect personality, the supreme lord and controller of all, he nonetheless acted as if he were an ordinary conditioned soul. Therefore, he strictly followed the principles of Varnashram Dharma and acted accordingly. In due course of time, the principles of Varnashram Dharma had become neglected. Therefore, through his personal characteristics and his behavior, he taught the ignorant people how to perform duties within the Varnashram Dharma. In this way, he regulated the general populace in householder life, enabling them to develop religion and economic well-being and to attain reputations, sons and daughters, material pleasure, and finally, eternal life. By his instructions, he showed how people could remain householders and at the same time become perfect by following the principles of Varnashram Dharma. So Lord Rishabhadev is giving this wonderful example, and he is saying to his sons later in this next chapter, as I quoted earlier, Tapodivyam putraka yena sattvam. So it appears that he's giving the Varnashram is interested in Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and then ultimately coming to liberation. Uh, but the main key is the liberation. The main key is liberation in devotional service, ultimately. This is the Vaishnava principle. And the performance of Vana and Ashram is to gradually elevate oneself from the Pavriti Marg, the Marga or the path of enjoying in the material world, not sinfully, but in accordance with religious principles. And gradually coming by good association, by hearing good instruction, by engaging in proper activities, following the Dharma according to one's psychophysical nature. We hear that psychophysical, wow, yes, our subtle and our gross bodies. So Srila Prabhupada very much wanted to establish this Vana and Ashram because he saw that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission is to spread the Harinam Sankirtan and liberate everyone through the congregational chanting. And the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra is the Yuga Dharma. But then, as Srila Prabhupada continued his Hare Krishna movement with absolute faith in the power of the holy name to deliver the fallen souls, right, he found that they are so fallen. Jagai and Madai are the examples given in Chaitanya Leela of the most fallen personalities. Uh, So Srila Prabhupada found himself in Malaysia Desh, in the Western countries, and everyone is more or less Jagai and Madai personified. Uh, So in one famous morning walk discussion, Srila Prabhupada was speaking, and he was explaining about Vana and Ashram. And the devotee said, one of the devotees said that this Vana Ashram, we're above Vana Ashram. Yes, so that's the idea. The path of full devotional service. Srila Prabhupada said to him in response that then why are you all falling down if you're above Varnashram? That means you've come to the position of transcendence. So Prabhupada was quick to say, you, why are you all falling down? Varnashram is required. So it's a very great, as again our Srila Prabhupada said, this process of devotional service is the greatest of all sciences. And the acharyas are able to adjust not the principles, but the details of how to bring us to this highest level of pure Krishna consciousness. And they're able to give us the guidance. So we see Rishabhadev was seeing that this Varnashram, which is absolutely essential, otherwise society will be chaotic. And what do we have? It is, probably another word, topsy-turvy, upside down, always disturbed. That is the nature, again. Bhagavatam says that people in this age of Kali are lazy, quarrelsome, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed. So it is an absolute chaotic position. And here we are as devotees taking up this process of devotional service. And we hear, just chant Hare Krishna and serve Krishna. And absolutely correct. Then we hear Varnashram, and we hear advice given in this situation and advice given in another situation. And um, it can be a little confusing. It can be a little unsettling because we are all individuals. And pretty much in Kali Yuga, we are born, as the Shastra explains that in Kali Yuga, everyone is born Sudra or less, pretty much. There's no good qualifications in this age. But we can, by by following carefully the messages of the Bhagavatam, not just taking one story, but going through all the cantos of the Bhagavatam and hearing great renunciation, then hearing great material opulence, hearing aerial mansions provided by a husband for his wife Devahuti, Kadama Muni, aerial mansions flying through the planets to different regions. And then we might think, wow, should I get one of those? Or should I just go and build a little hut and try to imitate Haridas Thakur? And we saw that too. Srila Prabhupada at different times said, Haridas Thakur is not to be imitated. We have to follow in the footsteps. And the acharyas have gone to great lengths to explain the difference between imitating and following in the footsteps. So the business is to come out of the Dukhalayama Shashvatam, the difficult situation. Daivahi Shagunamai Mama Maya Durachaya Mamevaye Prapadyante Mayamitam Tarantate. The living entities in this material world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they find themselves struggling very hard in this world with the six senses, which includes the mind. But those who surrender to me, Krishna says, can easily cross beyond this. So the purpose then is to find out how to surrender. And fortunately, Bhagavatam, even in all the different stories, from the aerial mansions to the heavenly planets to the different regions that Gopakumar visits in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, explains Gopakumar's traveling to different regions and ultimately trying to find where is his ultimate destination. So these stories are giving all these points, and we hear, as I've just mentioned, we hear of great renunciation, and we hear of great uh, dynasties, sons and daughters, so on and so forth. So the uh, example, again, Srila Prabhupada said one person may say this, one person may say that, but we Mahajana Yena Gata Sapanta, we follow the examples of the great Mahajans and read and hear about them. And in this way, we will pick up the right idea. So picking up, I wrote a little note over here. It said, pick up. So this we have to do. Lord Rishabhadev was saying you can live very nicely in one of the earlier verses. I think it was text 8. Let's quickly look at text 8. After Nabi Maharaj departed for Badrikashram, the Supreme Lord Rishabhadev understood that his kingdom was his field of activities. He therefore showed himself as an example and taught the duties of a householder by first accepting brahmacharya under the direction of the spiritual masters. He also went to live at the spiritual master's place, the Gurukula. After his education was finished, he gave gifts, Guru Dakshin, to his spiritual masters and then accepted the life of a householder. He took a wife named Jayanti and begot 100 sons who were as powerful and qualified as he himself. His wife Jayanti had been offered to him by Indra, the king of heaven. Rishabhadev and Jayanti performed householder life in an exemplary way, carrying out ritualistic activities ordained by the Shruti and Smriti Shastras. So we hear Lord Rishabhadev had 100 sons, and we think immediately, well, not you don't, but I do, and many others might, that oh, he was very much interested in having a lot of sex life because he had 100 sons, but his business was not that. See, we find it hard. We think Atmavan Manyate Jagat, that how I am thinking, Atmavan Manyate Jagat, the whole universe thinks like I think. So in this way, we get stuck very much. But when we understand that there are greater personalities, the Supreme Godhead and all his pure devotees, they have developed the divine qualities. So even if the Lord decides to dance with the gopis or he decides to manifest as Rishabhadev and take a wife, he's not affected by this lower nature. His producing of 100 sons is simply for the benefit of the conditioned souls. And so he can move anywhere and in any way. We hear about the super soul is situated within the heart of every living entity, but he's not contaminated. When he appears as Lord Boa, he's not uh, taking on pig-like qualities. So, Rishabhadev and Jayanti, yeah, let me read this purport, it's very helpful. Being an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Rishabhadev had nothing to do with material affairs. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Parityanaya sadhunam vinasaya chaduskritam. The purpose of an incarnation is to liberate his devotees and to stop the demoniac activities of non-devotees. These are the two functions of the Supreme Lord when he incarnates. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said that in order to preach, one must live a practical life and show people how to do things. Apani achari bhakti sikhaimu sabare. One cannot teach others unless he behaves the same way himself. Rishabhadev was an ideal king, and he took his education in the Gurukul, although he was already educated because the Supreme Lord is omniscient. Although Rishabhadev had nothing to learn from Gurukul, he went there just to teach the people in general how to take an education from the right source, from Vedic teachers. He then entered householder life and lived according to the principles of Vedic knowledge, Shruti and Smriti. In his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Srila Rupa Goswami, quoting the Skanda Purana, states, I'll just skip the English. Human society must follow the instructions received from Shruti and Smriti Vedic literature. Practically applied in life, this is worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead according to the Pancharatrika Vidhi. Every human being must advance his spiritual life and at the end return home back to Godhead. Maharaj Rishabhadev strictly followed all these principles. He remained an ideal grihastha and taught his sons how to become perfect in spiritual life. These are some examples of how he ruled the earth and completed his mission as an incarnation. So whether one is in, I was listening to Srila Prabhupada's Shruti Kirti, Srila Prabhupada's servant, uh, Shruti Kirti, and he was saying that how Prabhupada was not interested whether one was wearing saffron cloth or white cloth. He was simply interested in benefiting the devotees. And one devotee had fallen away from the saffron track, the path of the saffron life, and he had fallen from his position. And it had become very difficult for him because everyone was criticizing. And Srila Prabhupada was not in that mood. He saw that his disciple had tried very valiantly to take up the sannyas ashram and worked very, very much in the mood of devotion, but he fell from that level of complete brahmacharya or sannyas. And Prabhupada was very unhappy. He said, you've spoken so badly, and this is absolutely not to be done. You made it so difficult for this person. He will not be able to take shelter. So Prabhupada was very upset. But the devotee came back just before Prabhupada left. He'd heard that Prabhupada was leaving and he came back. And Prabhupada was so happy to see him. And actually, he said, uh, uh, Srila Prabhupada said he'd heard that he'd gone and he'd married and he had children. And Srila Prabhupada said to him, "Where is your wife?" And he said she hadn't come at this time, only this devotee had gone on his own like that. So Prabhupada was so encouraging. And then in one um, chapter of Bhagavatam, and the story of Gajendra, where the crocodile and the elephant are struggling, and like that, gradually Gajendra is becoming weak because he's in the wrong situation in the water fighting the crocodile. The crocodile is becoming stronger, he's becoming weaker because it's not his natural position, couldn't function so well there. So Srila Prabhupada made the point relating to how that devotee had gone and saying that if one is in a difficult situation, he should make an adjustment and come into a powerful situation so that he can become uh, situated in a way that he can progress. So this is the acharya. The acharya, we cannot make adjustments so easily like that, but Srila Prabhupada could because his heart was pure completely and he had so much compassion that he could adjust and Krishna would not be disturbed by his adjustment, but would be pleased that I'm not adjusting whimsically, but this man is a good man and he's trying so hard. So let me make adjustments so that he can continue. And the devotee did continue as a grihasta. And Srila Prabhupada said to Shruti Kirti, he said, see, he is now a householder like you. And Shruti Kirti said he was wearing white and this devotee was also wearing white. So so it's a great journey that we are on. And Rishabhadev encourages. So he's not just encouraging that we enjoy unrestricted sense enjoyment in householder life. No, the householder life, Srila Prabhupada, again, he said like that. That if we follow strictly, then it's a place of tapasya. And that's second part of that verse where tapodivyam putrakayena sattvam sudyed yasmad brahma sokyam tvanantam. If we want spiritual happiness, we have to pick up this mood of detachment, the mood of voluntary performing austerity, to develop exemplary character, to develop the good quality. We have to do that, whether we're in this ashram or that ashram. We have to develop the good qualities of a Vaishnava. And that is stated very clearly in the Bhagavatam. Prabhupada says there's no question of going back home, back to Godhead, unless we've developed the qualities of a Vaishnava. So we have to. So whether you choose, whether you go this ashram, that ashram, whether we go fast or slow or medium, whatever, um, we have to take up that mood of the Nivriti Marg. There's the Pavriti Marg and the Nivriti Marg. So for most people, the Pavriti Marg, the Vana and Ashram gradually is Rishabhadev, Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyas, like that. Or whether one goes gradually or one is able to go immediately, then that is the Nivriti Marg. But ultimately, even the Pavriti Marg has to become Nivriti. So it's Pavriti, Nivriti together. You have to do the Pavriti and cultivating Nivriti, and then gradually more and more until we come to this point. Mamapecha Purna Jama Dukalayama Shashvat Napnuvanti Mahatmana Samsitim Paramam Gati. When we return to spiritual consciousness, we will no longer want to go to material consciousness because we see it as simply a waste of time. It is a horrible place. Uh, uh, Vishame Bhavambado. Lord Chaitanya says not Bhavambado is the material ocean, but Vishame Bhavambado. He said this is the horrible ocean of material existence. It's not just an ocean, which is very difficult. It's a horrible ocean. Uh, So we uh, continue on this path. Uh, 11th canto of Bhagavatam just comes to mind. It says that we should continue. We start the process and we don't stop. Krishna says, uh, what's that? Jata Shraddha Matkatashu Nirvina sarvakarmishu Veda dukatmakam kamam Parityagepi Parityagepianishvara Tato bhajetamam pritaha. There's two verses there. In 11th, I think it's 11, 20, 27. I quote it quite often. And it says like that, that the having awakened attraction for hearing the messages of the Lord, being disgusted with all material activities. So we have to become disgusted. We have to get attraction for the Lord's pastimes and hearing all these descriptions of the Bhagavatam. But being unable to become perfect immediately, then what to do? So Krishna himself says that one should remain happy and continue the process of devotional service, uh, and be regretful if there's some difficulty at any time, but not, what's the word? I've always struggled for that word. The modern way of saying it is don't beat yourself up, but it means don't be morose, but pick yourself up and continue the process, and continue according to your vana and your ashram, and through the process of uh, sadhu sangha, and by reading Bhagavatam, by associating with those who are seriously engaged in devotional service, by taking guidance from those revealing one's mind in confidence and inquiring confidentially. Nectar of Instruction explains like that. uh, Finding people that we can reveal our mind in confidence and that we can hear from, and we can also, like that, sharing back and forward, giving gifts and charity, the loving exchanges between devotees. And Krishna says, one should remain happy and continuing worshiping me with great faith and devotion, even though sometimes maybe one is uh, finding some difficulty on the path. He should continue, be a little regretful, remorseful, repentful, and continue the process. And we will be surely be able to come to the position that Rishabhadev is encouraging his sons to come to, where we will get beyond this sense gratification world, and we will come to Brahma Sokyam, which is eternal and continues forever, this spiritual happiness. So Krishna has been kind and given us little tastes of this spiritual happiness. We don't want the material. We're seeing that. So we just keep good association, continue the process, and success is guaranteed. So we'll finish at that point. If anyone has any reflections, any comments to make, then please unmute, and I'll just see what time. Where's the time? We started at 8. Yes. So we maybe 5 minutes or so. We can see if anyone has any reflections or comments or even a question. If you have, you can unmute and.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam, Hare Krishna.
Oh, Hare Krishna. Who is that speaking?
Yeah, Avocharan.
Oh, Abhay. Sorry. Yeah, I couldn't see.
Yeah. Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you very much for bringing out particularly the last part where it says sometimes we have sometimes in doubt in different difficult situation, but we need to
Mhm.
continue and with hope that yeah the things will get right. But sometimes in our present situation that the around is often sometimes is disheartening sometimes. I mean, for me in particular, sometimes we feel that everything not going well, so get frustrated. So you have very rightly told the thing is that we have to continue in spite of whatever the shortcomings sometimes we face, and particularly ourselves when we think that the progress is not enough. Uh, should progress and quickly, but it's not
Yeah,
taking place.
I'm just thinking, but I'm just thinking as you're saying that, in case I forget, we hear the example of a child learning to walk, and it's to be expected that the child's not going to walk immediately. And we use that example. But then we think, oh, come on, we've been doing this for a while, so we shouldn't be falling over. But that's our passion, and that's we don't realize that we're actually quite small and very, very fragile, and it's yeah. So we think, yes, yes, no, I can. And a child does that too, you know. The first time they might get up and walk a couple of steps, then they think they can just do it. They can run. But maybe we walk for a few steps and then get in some arguments, and then we may be sensually weak. We may, so many things, situations come up, and we might find ourselves in some difficulty. And then we can lose all hope and think, well, I was up and running, and no, I can't. Oh, it's hopeless. But no, you just keep on steadily taking shelter, and we'll get stronger. Keep that good association, and we'll get stronger and stronger. Thanks for sharing that, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for that. Thank you for your suggestions. Thank you once again.
Hare Krishna.
Because you have a long experience and you have traveled a lot, so you have a greater experience on that. Thank you.
Yeah, I've got lots of bumps from falling over, falling. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hari Hari.
Um, Hari Hari. Again, I just want to thank you for encouraging us to continue in this process, no matter what. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mataji. Yeah. And we face different difficulties at different times, and we tend to think it's only me that's experiencing these difficulties, but the whole everyone experiences. They might be slightly different in different circumstance, but the same thing is dukalayam asasvatam. It's always going to be the adi boltic, adi daivik, adi atmik. All sorts of problems. So they're going to be there. And Prabhupada in another place says, there's either big upheavals or small upheavals. There's always some upheaval. It can just be a family. It can be a personal upheaval. Then there can be a family upheaval. Then there can be a community upheaval.
Yeah,
National, then international. You can have wars and people are. So there's earthquakes. So many things. But
thank you. Thank you. Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Maharaji. Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Hare
Okay.
Krishna.
Oh, Nanda Braj Prabhu.
Very nice unpacking of this verse. It's a small verse, but he gave such a elaborate explanation. I really like the example where he said we have to pick up ourselves, as Madhuri said. We have ups and downs, but with great faith, we just keep on going, and Krishna will take care of that. Uh, and one question on this verse, Prabhu, is that what of action is performed by great men, common man follows. But
Yeah.
these days, whom do we consider great men? People are taking celebrities or presidents. So they are no way qualified to do this. So whom should we follow?
They're celebrated as the great men. Isn't it? And that's what people are following. They're following the politicians or the sports stars or cinema stars or whatever great, apparently great personalities. And they're suffering so much because the great personalities are also stuck in this material. They may be billionaires, like one or two of the big politicians and stuff, but we shouldn't be we shouldn't be bewildered and think, oh, they really seem with all their money. Just like my wife and I would go out walking, and I'm sure others do. You go out for a walk sometimes, and you see big, wonderful, palatial type buildings where you might go and you see some lovely places. And we make a joke, they must be really happy in there. I mean, come on, they must be big estate, big driveways, and all the rest of it. But we know better. We know that they are in there and they're suffering the same as everyone else. They've got all the difficulties. Um, the children are not as obedient as you think. Their relatives are just like your relatives, etc., etc. So yeah. So where are the leaders that we can follow? So again, we don't want to cut ourselves off, isolate ourselves, but we can insulate ourselves. So we have there is a difference. So to insulate ourselves is good. We're not interested in taking shelter of those other personalities because we know it's not a good idea. So we insulate ourselves from them, and we take shelter of the great personalities, Rishabhadev, for example, and we get their examples, all the examples in the Bhagavatam, and they are great personalities. And the ultimate of all great personalities is the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. And we hear His pastimes. Last night I managed to listen just a little bit of Krishna book, Keshava Bharati Maharaj and Vaisheshika Prabhu were reading Krishna book a few years back, and some recordings like that. And we're hearing about Krishna and Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma was bewildered. He said, I hid the cowherd boys and the calves, and they're over in this cave. And how come they're here? And he couldn't, it took him a while to get it, that his mystic power. So he's a great personality. We're in the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. But in comparison to the Supreme Lord, Lord Brahma couldn't. He said, this little cowherd is my master. This is amazing. So he became very much regretful and very much overwhelmed by the potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So these are our heroes. We keep pictures of our heroes. We put them on the wall. We talk about them until the cows come home. So maybe one day we can go with the cows, the calves, and Krishna back home, back to Godhead.
Thank you, Prabhu. Another follow-up question is that sometimes we have a hero or a great man we are following, and then he goes down. So in that case, how should we take up this? Should we criticize him or follow him, or he might have done some great service previously? How should we look at this situation, though?
Wow. There's a scripture that I haven't actually read. I've listened to little parts of it many years back. Narahari Saka is written. If you can find that, if you can, it's quite an obscure scripture or writing where he talks about that very unfortunate situation where a great personality becomes a victim. And at the same time as I'm saying this, we know that the Bhagavatam is filled with descriptions of great personalities becoming covered by illusion and falling into different situations, but they recover. We hear, for example, just one example, it's not the prime example, but Bharat Maharaj becomes attached to a deer, which is totally unexpected. And I'm sure his wife I'm joking when I say this is a joke. His wife might have been upset. Well, he headed off. She was happy. She's so exalted, we can hardly imagine how exalted. But in modern thought, you'd think the wife might be thinking, well, he gave me up and the kingdom and off he went. Now he's attached to a deer. She wasn't thinking like that. Why? Because she was a pure, absolute pure soul. But so we even see that. So, but then he seems to have a difficult situation. But then again, he takes his next birth as Jada Bharat, and again he perfects his life. So sometimes it appears there's a reversal which seems so sad and so bad and so this and so that. But unless one has to deal with that situation, so one may have to, due to managerial position, and even then one has to be very careful. Gosh, I'm just last night I was listening to some story. Who was it? It was oh boy. It was Shruti Kirti. He was explaining there was this this pastime of Srila Prabhupada's pastime in England, and the Srila Prabhupada had just arrived at the manor, and just as he arrived, the president came, and Shruti Kirti said there was three of us in Prabhupada's room. There was Srila Prabhupada, Shruti Kirti, and the president. And it's just as soon as Prabhupada arrived, this president came in, and he said, the GBC is not chanting his rounds, Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada, his reaction after a few seconds was he pointed, gosh, no, who did he point to? Gosh, there was another person. He said three, but there must have been four. Please forgive me, but it's like, so he pointed, there was a sannyasi in the room. It wasn't about the sannyasi. He pointed to the sannyasi and told him, tell, gosh, oh gosh. Anyway, please forgive me. I'm terrible at telling exactly the story. I just heard it last night. Um, I know the essence of the story. He pointed and said, tell him to leave the room. He said, Shriki said, Prabhupada didn't even look at him. And Prabhupada was, even though the fact was true that the GBC at that time was not chanting his rounds, Prabhupada didn't want to, he picked up the mood. He picked up the mood from the president at that time, which was envy, a sense to hurt someone. I bring it to Prabhupada's attention, but Prabhupada picked up the mood. It wasn't a mood of Srila Prabhupada, our GBC is having and I'm really concerned, and he's not even chanting, but that wasn't his mood. His mood was to point out he's not chanting. So Prabhupada gave this example and said to someone else to tell this, but Prabhupada, Sri said, Prabhupada didn't even look at him. He said, tell him to leave. And the president got up and left. So even though it was his duty, and I think sannyasi said, well, actually, Srila Prabhupada, like that. He's not chanting, but Prabhupada picked up the wrong mood. So I don't know if that answers. Yes, so we have to pick up it's a great science. And we have controversies in our society when somebody is in an exalted position and acts in an inappropriate way, how to deal with it. And we're pretty expert at not dealing with it properly. Myself included, I'm not exempt from all of this because we're not very advanced in Krishna consciousness. So best to not get involved unless you have to. And that is very clearly stated in the Shastra that when there's, say, difficulties or even arguments between Vaishnavas, best don't get involved. Don't take one side against some other Vaishnava because they're all aspiring Vaishnavas. So best don't go there. There's no, unless you have to. And then we have to be very pray to Krishna to remain clear in our consciousness and not see it as an opportunity to put somebody down, which means an opportunity to push ourselves up. So again, Prabhu, it's not a great answer, but it's a great science how to act in all the different situations. So just be pray to Krishna that that I can be able that I'll not have to act too much in these kinds of things, and if I do in some way, please allow me to act appropriately. Krishna. Yeah, anything, Nanda Braj? Maybe you have something you'd like to suggest
No,
a
no,
little.
Prabhu, I'm not very mature in this situation. I really like to learn how to deal with this situation. Because there's sort of races, there are a lot of criticism, and the internet is quite rife with that. So sorry, I tried not to read all these things,
Good man.
but how to deal with it. But you mentioned had to look at it very compassionately because they had done great service previously. As Prabhupada mentioned, we have to bring them up. We don't want to make them ashamed what they've done. They can,
No.
it's mentioned baby steps, they might fall down, they'll pick up, but they are in that process. So it's not good to have so much criticism, just to pray for them to pick themselves up. I mean, that's the way I look at it.
Nice, Nanda Braj. Yeah. What a science it is, Prabhu, huh? How to act. And you may be in a situation where you may be a manager. Even then, we have to be very careful. Okay, I'm in a managerial situation and I have to make a decision. And it's upon me, the buck might stop with you and you've got to make a call on it. So we should be praying that please, Krishna, allow me not to be influenced by passion and ignorance and act against someone. Just that would not be good. But you may have to make some decision. And then again, as you said, having the consciousness that this person maybe some adjustment has to be made, but I'm praying that this adjustment that gradually or quickly that person will be able to be rectified and come back to Krishna. And yeah, because we isn't it? It makes complete sense because we're praying to Krishna. Let me preach your glories and let me uplift all the people who are meat eating and doing all kinds of horrible things. We're trying to develop compassion for them, but then a devotee who's tried so hard in different ways for so long he may commit an abominable activity, but we should be equally as compassionate. So anyway, it's not conclusive, it's not absolute, it's just a few thoughts, isn't it? We're discussing.
Thank you so much, Babu. Hare Krishna.
So maybe we can finish there.
Yes, Babu. Yes, time going
Yes.
with our time.
Okay.
Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyo cha patitānaṁ pāvanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namo Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. His grace Jai Srila Prabhu ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Divine graces, Bhaktivedanta.
Gaur Premanande Hari
Panchakalpatarvisa.
Hari.
Hare Krishna Prabhus. Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
How do I